we're going to talk about the three main blood vessels, their similarities, and their differences. What are blood vessels? Blood vessels are channels used to distribute blood to tissues throughout the body. We will look at the three main types of blood vessels: the artery, the capillary, and the vein. The artery is a blood vessel that conducts and distributes. It conducts blood away from the heart, but it also distributes blood throughout the body. The capillary is the smallest of the blood vessels. It forms the connection between the artery and the vein. The vein conducts blood toward the heart after it receives it from the capillary. The walls of the blood vessels consist of up to 3 layers: the tunica externa, the tunica media, and the tunica intima. The similarities between the artery, vein, and capillary are as follows. They each transport blood, they each have a lumen, and they each have an endothelium. What is a lumen? A lumen is the opening or space where the blood travels within the vessel. What is an endothelium? The endothelium lies in the interior surface of blood vessels, between the lumen and the rest of the vessel wall. The endothelium is part of the tunica intima. There are 4 more differences and similarities between the blood vessels. First, we will look at the structural differences. Then we will look at how they differ in relation to function. Finally, we will see how the structural design is driven by the function of each vessel. The artery wall consists of 3 layers. Its tunica externa is made of connective tissue which consists of elastin and collagen. Its tunica media is a very thick layer that consists of a high amount of muscle and elastic fibers. And its tunica intima is the innermost lining of the vessel, which is very, very thin. Here we see the tunica externa, the tunica media, which is a very thick layer, and then you have the tunica intima, and then you also have the hole, the opening, which is called the lumen. If you notice, the lumen is very narrow in an artery. The vein wall also has 3 layers. Its tunica externa, as you see, is thicker than the tunica externa seen in the artery earlier. The tunica media, the middle layer, is thinner than in arteries. It also has less elastic fiber and muscle. The tunica intima is the innermost lining, which is very thin. Here you see that the lumen is very wide. The vein wall is made of the same 3 layers as the artery. However, later we'll see that they are structurally different from those of the artery wall. The capillary wall consists of 1 layer. The tunica intima is composed of a thin layer of endothelial cells which line the entire circulatory system, from the heart and the large intestines all the way down to the very tiny capillary beds. Now we will look at the function of each blood vessel. The artery takes oxygen-rich blood away from the heart at a high-pressure flow. The capillary receives the blood from the artery and deposits oxygen and nutrients into the tissues of the body. The vein receives the oxygen-depleted blood from the capillary at a much lower pressure and then returns the blood to the heart. Now we're going to look at how the function drives the form or structure of the blood vessel. The artery takes blood away from the heart at a high rate of pressure, so it's necessary that it has thick muscular walls to withstand the flow of blood, plenty of elastic tissue to expand without bursting, and a narrow lumen to maintain pressure and control to distribute the blood throughout the body. The vein has a thicker tunica externa to prevent collapse and to protect the vein from damage since it lies closer to the skin surface. The capillaries pass low-pressure blood onto the veins, so the veins don't need thick walls like the arteries. Because the wall of the vein is thinner and less rigid than that of the artery, veins can hold more blood. Almost 70% of the total blood volume is in the veins at any given time. But without high pressure to keep the blood moving, they will need a way to keep the blood moving in the right direction. That is why the vein needs valves. The wide lumen and the valves work together to keep the blood flowing from the vein back to the heart. The capillary and its very thin walls are important because they are permeable. Permeable means that it allows water, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and other nutrients and waste substances to exchange between the blood cells and tissues. If it had the other two layers in addition, this process could not happen. There needs to be a lot of capillaries to supply all the tissues properly. The lumen of the capillaries is very narrow. This helps be able to fit many capillaries in a small place, increasing the surface area for diffusion. So there is a low pressure because the blood has spread from few arteries to many capillaries. So there you have it, the three main blood vessels, their similarities, their differences, and the why behind it all.